Okay, so today we're going to talk about literature review, which is basically the primary steps that we're going to have in order to have a solid background in our fundamental theories and also reasons why we conduct a certain research and then fall through the background story of why and how one scientific research is conducted, etc., and so on. And for that, I'm going to give you some time to accessing the video that is presented in EduNext that I've already prepared for you to see in sometime in later period. And then I also want you to look for another book that can be used in order for you to do scientific literature review. Okay, let me press this one, which is coming out from this one. Conducting research literature review from the internet to a paper. So this is written by Arlen Fink. Okay, so if you do have access to this book, please don't hesitate to read the materials that is covered in the book, and then you can study and also compare the thing that you already did in your past experience in dealings with compiling data in terms of compiling information that is beneficial for the paper writing or beneficial for your presentation. Okay, so even though I think the focus of the book itself is not coming from natural science and engineering, if I'm not mistaken. So this is, let me change the, okay, let me change the display here. Okay. Okay, so it's become a little bit terrible. Let me see. Okay, so Arlen Fink itself, the author of this book, is a professor of medicine and public health at the University of California, Los Angeles, and president of the Langley Research Institute. Her main interests include evaluation and survey research and the conduct of research literature review, as well as evaluation of their quality. Okay, so so here, let us go through the thing that Dr. Fink prepared for the book. Okay, so I'm not I don't know why the display is not well displayed here. Okay, so here, let us go through the first chapter, reviewing the literature, why, for whom, and how. Okay. So what is literature review? Okay, why do we need one? And then how can we gain control in the literature review work? And then how to choose what online bibliographic database, how do you ask information, and then pausing the search, etc., and so on. Okay, so the purpose of the first chapter is basically to give an overview of the process of doing research review and illustrate how they are used. Main objective is to demonstrate how to do online searches of research literature using bibliographic or article databases. The chapter provides guidelines on how to ask specific questions on the database and how to search for information using keywords, thesauruses, and Boolean logic. The chapter Also discusses method for supplementing online searches with manual or hand searches of reference lists and guidance from experts. Okay, so the definition of research, okay, or researcher or researcher is a systematic, explicit, and reproducible method for identifying, evaluating, and synthesizing the existing body of completed and recorded work produced by researchers, scholars, and practitioners. So, in order for us to have a solid background on the thing that we want to talk, or on the thing that we want to present, or the thing that we want to write, we need to know what are the background stories or the current situation or the current development of the certain method that we want to discuss. So for example, if we are going to, okay, so if we are going to talk about, okay, let me prepare a blind presentation, and then move our screen into the let me see. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, here it is. Okay, I'll use the screen instead. Okay, so for example, if we are going to look for a certain topic, for example, in Earth physics, I'm going to monitoring of Tangkuban Perahu volcano, for example. Monitoring of Tangkuban Perahu volcano. Okay, so if I have this kind of a topic that I want to talk about in a certain meeting or in a certain lecture or in a certain or I want to write something that is related to this topic, okay? So what I need to do first is that I need to look for several literature. So in literature review, okay, this is the topic. In literature review, I want to look for informations on several things. First is why we need monitoring. So for example, we need to monitor a certain volcano because it has danger, okay? Danger to people that surround the area. Okay, and then monitoring is also done in order to mitigate damages of public and official building. Okay. And also people's crops. What crops mean here is that people who live around the volcano, most of them are farmers and also people who grew livestock, for example, cows, sheep, chickens, etc., and so on. And that those animals are basically their source of living, and so if we could not able to monitor the volcano, it means that there will be some kind of a risk for them to lose their job, etc. So it basically will cause a lot of economical and also psychological damage, obviously, if we don't monitor. Okay, so here and then these are basically the reason why we need to monitor. And then second one is how to monitor. For example, this is only a simple example on how can we use literature review, right? So how to monitor, we can use it visually. Okay, we can do visually from a certain monitor, from a certain station, from a certain volcanological station. Or we can do monitoring using remote sensing. Okay, remote sensing. Okay, the remote sensing can be used can be done using GIS. Okay, using using satellites. Okay, using satellites that record the day by day figure or photograph. Okay, that is taken from the sky. And the second one is using, for example, geophysical method. Geophysical method. Okay, so here from this one, okay, so from these 2 points, we can do several things. Okay, danger to people and surrounds the area. So the first one, so from the first, second, third, and then fourth, 5, and 6, we can do several detailed literature review to carry out. So for example, for the first topic, danger to the people that surround the area. Okay, danger for people, danger for the people. In the area. So from here, we can do a background story of the volcano itself. What is the history of Tangkuban Perahu? The actual history, right? The geological history. Okay, Tangkuban Perahu geologically. So from the by reviewing the history of Tangkuban Perahu in terms of its geological occurrence, it means that we're going to see when is the latest eruption, for example. Okay, and then when is the biggest eruption, and then from the latest eruption, how many casualties? How many casualties? And also the same with the biggest eruptions, how many people died or injured. Okay, from looking for information about the danger for the people in area. Okay, and then looking back at the history of the Tangkuban Parahu event in terms of its geology, we can look for information about its latest eruption, and then how many casualties that is happened on that latest eruption, and then when was the biggest eruption happens in the volcano, and how many people died on or injured due to the event, the biggest eruption. If the biggest eruption is not resulting in many casualties, we need to look for more information. Okay, so we need to look at the information about the highest human casualties look at the information of highest human casualties. Is it correlate linearly with the level of eruptions? It means that does the biggest eruption of Mount Tangkuban Perahu is consequently causing the highest human casualties from the event? Okay, because sometimes in a certain volcano, large eruption doesn't means that human casualty will also high. Okay, sometimes the eruption that took for certain period of time, even though the intensity is lower, that will produce more casualty compared to the biggest event. Okay, so we need to look at the data. We could look at the history of the Tangkuban Parahu volcano, so that we can have that profile of human casualties, etc., and so on. Because from there, so from here, okay, so from here maybe we can look at the literature, okay, because we are talking about the literature review. So here we need to go to the database, okay, whether using Scopus or Google Scholar, okay. Okay, Google Scholar, Scopus, or Elsevier, etc., and so on, and look for the history. Or even we can look at the information given in the website. Okay, the official website of the PVMDG, for example, from the Center of Volcanology and Geological Disaster Mitigation Office in Bandung. Okay, they have their official website, which probably will tell us about about the information of the history of Tangkuban Parahu volcanic event, for example. We look at the articles, okay, articles, technical paper, or newspaper, okay, or website, okay. Website is part, well, article can be put on a website, and also newspaper. Okay, if newspaper, if we have that, source available on the website. If the newspaper are basically printed, for example, in the 70s, in the 60s, or in the 50s, and they don't have any digital copy yet, then we need to go to the, for example, the municipal library, or in the central library of LIPI, for example, or probably the central library in the geological agency in Bandung, for example, to look for information about this one. Okay, because the source of information or the literature that we can look for this type of information is not only coming out from scientific paper and books, but it can also taken from newspaper, etc. and so on. Okay, and then it's also true. Okay, it's also true for the next topics or the next thing that we want to cover. For example, the information about the latest eruption, the biggest eruption, and then the highest human casualty, and so on, etc. and so on, coming from this source as well. Example. Okay, so from deciding, okay, this type of information that we want to cover in the introduction part of our paper, for example, we can do several literature review in order for us to gather in order to gather many information about the relevant topic, okay, or the relevant subtopic or the relevant keyword that we want to address in the introduction of our paper. Okay, so these are that is the example on how on why we need monitoring, especially in order to mitigate danger for to mitigate to mitigate or to reduce the number of human casualties. Okay, so okay, so that is to answer the question why we need monitoring. Okay, so for another example, if we want to know how monitoring is conducted, for example, okay, on how, okay, if we want to take the how, then we can do the geophysical method. For example, this one, the number 6. Okay, point number 6. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay, 6 is geophysical method. Okay, the geophysical method that is used for monitoring, what is the typical? So for monitoring volcanoes, one will use, for example, seismometer. And then from here, we need to look for information about the volcanic seismometry. Okay, so from here we look for the history. Okay, when does the volcanic seismometry firstly conducted? Okay, what is the first monitoring? When was the first volcano monitoring conducted in the world? And then when was the seismometer is applied in the environment of Indonesian volcano, for example, history in the world. And then, for example, history in Indonesia. And what is the present development? Do people now utilize triaxial seismometer, or is still using the pressure seismometer, or is it now using telemetry or using artificial intelligence in terms of analyzing the data of volcanic seismometry, etc. and so on. So from here we can have another aspect that we can search for the sources. Okay, so here we can look for the history of the volcanic seismometry, for example, in Indonesia. When was it is first applied, and then what are the success story of the volcanic seismometry? Can it be used? When was the seismometry become successful in terms of its usage, for example, in mitigate a certain volcanic eruption, so that the casualties becomes is not much as is not much when the eruption never been monitored, for example. And then the present development, is it using the satellites in order to transmit data from one volcano to the office of the geologic agency, or they have several methods that are applied in the improvement of the seismometry. So these are an example of working on literature review itself. So if you all remember in the last week lecture, when we do that brainstorming thing, that process is basically to give us some kind of a directions, right? So from that direction, we can grow to ideas on what things that we want to cover, etc., and so on. So after we knew about the chronological order on or the thing that we want to convey from the first paragraph, the second, third, to the end, then we can use literature review, or we can look for papers and also journals and books that can be used in order to strengthen our opinion or strengthen our description about that certain idea. So, for example, here we can say in the introduction part of our paper tells the reader that monitoring a volcano using seismometer has become a necessity, for geological agency, because from the changes of or from the vibration that is recorded in the volcano, we can detect the changes of movement inside of the magma chamber, for example. And then when the vibration become more erratic than normal situation, it means that there are some kind of a progress, or there's some kind of a development of certain lava or certain magma inside of that volcano that ready to erupt at certain time. So the literature that we get from, for example, from Scopus, from Google, etc., will strengthen the arguments that we make in the introduction from the history or from the studies of several researchers in several past year. For example, we can the best one for literature review is that for you to have a recent one that is no longer than 10 years from our present time. So to gather many current information for your paper, become more preferable instead of using references, or instead of using newspaper or an article that is coming out from 10 years ago or from 20 years ago. So the way that you can do is basically from the branching of the topics that we want to cover in that section, and then we look for that relevant information using the tools that is given for readily available using Scopus, Google Scholar, etc., and so on that particular topic, for example. In the book that I showed you earlier, most of the example here are coming from the medical world, okay, from the medical application, but still we can do some kind of a comparison, at least for our own field, okay. Okay, so here, step involved in conducting literature review, for example, taken here from figure 1, is to select, for example, a research question. Okay, so what we already done earlier when we want to monitor volcano, we present how and why. Okay, and then how and why is basically relevant to the main topic of the research itself. Okay, and then select bibliographic database and website. Okay, and then choose search term, and then we can also ask expert or ask your advisor or ask the person that you know are more knowledgeable about that certain field to guide you on the process of looking the correct database or the correct machine to look for that for that article, for example, because even though even though geophysics is a narrow field compared to the physics itself, but geophysics can also considered as a broad field if you look upon the application of geophysics in the industry or in the scientific research. For example, what I'm going to say is that there are differences in how geophysics is applied for oil and gas industry and for earthquake and volcanic monitoring, and also for environmental studies. Okay, so if you're looking for articles that relates to the volcano monitoring in petroleum industry database, you will not get any result, okay, because you are searching in the wrong database. And the same also applied if you're going to look for information about the application of geophysics method in environmental studies. If you took the database that is coming out from the petroleum industry, then probably you will not get any satisfactory result, even though it's kind of close. Okay, because the geophysical method itself can be applied in several applications. However, it doesn't mean that the application itself is pinpointing to the things that you want to look. Okay, because if you look at the database in the petroleum exploration database, and you're looking for literature about the application of geophysics in environmental studies, but since your database is wrong, it means that you will not get any information that are directly related to the environment studies. However, the method itself can be applied. Okay, the method itself can be the same. Okay, in terms of the analysis or in terms of the ways of we interpret the data, etc., and so on. But it is not pinpointing to the application that we want. Okay, so looking for the correct database that is coming from the suggestion from expert may also beneficial for your literature research. Okay, and then after that, after we choose the search terms, we apply practical screen, for example, content, covered, etc., and so on, and then apply methodological quality screen, and then train reviewer, pilot test, etc. So here, what is presented in the book is basically the formal way to do literature review. Okay, in order for you to know about the formal way, please look at these steps that is present in the book. If you have any chance to, if you have the chance to access it, and then please don't hesitate to do this step-by-step procedures, okay? Because probably when you are working on the correct procedures, later on you will know, or later on when you are conducting your own literature review, you already used to the way, okay? You already used to how to do effective literature search and literature review, so that you don't wasting your time in this section, because literature review is only the first step, or the starting point of your actual work, which is basically to write a paper or to present a presentation. Okay, so I'm not going to talk more about this, because it is a quite, it is not that much actually, because the compared to the other book, the 200 pages book probably uh, will consume you much time if you going to read it in a slow mode. But I'm just going to let you free to search the relevant things that you might need in order to do literature review later on. So I'm not going to talk about this too much, so that you can have the freedom on to access and also to read the material present here. Okay, so those are one example of how can we do practical literature review, but the ways, okay, that you can access freely is also coming out from the video that I present here in the EduNext. I'm going to give you freedom also to access this later on in your free time. But what I want to, and then for the tools, okay, for the tools, as I mentioned earlier, probably you already knew about Scopus, about Elsevier, etc., and so on. So, for example, let me see. If you look out for, okay, if you look at for Scopus, where is Scopus? Oh, here it is. Do I need some kind of access to the VPN? Okay, author search. Okay, check access. Okay, so it's okay. So since I am not in the area of ITB campus, I kind of lost in terms of its network. Okay, so I could not access Scopus, but let me look for another method. Okay, so for example, if I choose Google search or Google Scholar, for example, Google Scholar. Okay, so for example, if I want to look for volcano monitoring, okay, we will get many results from typing the topic of volcano monitoring, and then Google will provide us with several articles that is comes out from several period of time. So for example, this is from 1996 and 1996, and then from 2008 and 2006. So for example, if I want to be specified, if I want to be more specific, tangkuban perahu monitoring, for example. Tangkuban perahu monitoring. Oh, okay. Tangkuban perahu monitoring. We'll get the latest publication, for example, from Pure and Applied Geophysics 2021. Okay, so it is quite recent. that talks about areas of using remote sensing technique in case study of Unzen, Japan, and Papandayan and Tacubon Perahu. This is written by Yohei Morifuji from, I think from, about this article, references. Do they have some kind of affiliation from this one? Let me see. Okay, so they don't. Do they give you the the author affiliation? Let me see. Oh, okay. So this is how to contact Yohei. I don't need that. Okay, so or is it if I download the PDF, what will happen? Okay. So so the affiliation of the author is from from Kyushu of University, Fukuoka, Japan, and the rest of the authors there is also coming from Kyushu University Central Research Institute of Electric Power Industry, and also from Department of Geology from University of Dhaka. Okay, so here we can see that the latest publication related to the Tangkuban Perahu volcano monitoring is coming from this paper, and then they use remote sensing technique. Okay, so from satellites that they look upon the land deformation or mass deformation that is happening inside or surround the volcano itself. Okay, so from here we can look at the sources. Okay, so this is also one part of the. So this is also one important part in doing literature review, is that after you look at the paper, okay, from here, you can see at the references that this paper have. Okay, okay. So from here, they also have these names and these publications that they use in order to make this paper. Okay, so so we can also look for this references if we see they are correlated with the things that we want to talk. Okay, if it's not, then we don't need them. Okay, but the references that is listed here is basically can give help. Okay, can help us in terms of gathering more information about the thing that we want to cover. Okay, so basically the reference list that is listed on a certain paper can also be helpful in terms of helping us working on literature review. If the paper listed here it is not related, then we don't need to use them. But if it's related, then we can look for the relevant papers that is listed here, and then after we get that paper, we can look at the reference list, etc., and so on. And also, we can also look for the. So this is coming out in 2021, so it's quite recent. Okay, but if the publication is relatively old, for example, this one. Okay. For example, I'm just choosing this randomly. Okay, so for example here, furthering the investigation of eruption styles throughout quantitative set, etc., and so on. Well, after we look at the references that this paper have, for example, this one, we could also look for the paper that are citing this paper. So this paper is published in 2018. So we are now in 2021. So in the period of 3 years, there should be a paper or two that cite this paper for their own. So for that, okay, for example, article metrics, citing article. Okay, so this paper is already taken as reference for this paper. Okay, so from this more recent paper, we could see the latest development on this certain area. Okay, on this certain topic of interest, for example. Okay, so this is if we use Science Direct, we can access it from our home. But if we are going to use Scopus or Web of Knowledge or Web of Science, we need to have access first into the ITB VPN before we access Scopus, etc. So on. So these are basically the basic tool for look for journals. But mostly this database is coming out from outside of our country. So if we're going to look for a scientific source that is coming locally, okay, we could use Garuda, for example, that is provided by Ristekbrin. So from here, we can also look for data. We can look also for a certain topic in this database search. For example, environmental physics. Okay, if I write environmental physics over here, what will happen? Okay, if I type environmental physics in Garuda, I can get 5 documents that relates to this topic from the national sources gathered from several publications. Okay, so if you're looking for the local and or national paper that is related to your topic, you can use Garuda. But if you want to look for if you want to see for the foreign publications that is commonly that are available from Elsevier, Springer, American Geophysical Union, or Geophysics, or Physical Review, or American Physical Association, American Physics Association, etc., and so on. Then you need to look for the correct database, whether it's using Google Scholar or Scopus, etc. Okay, so from here in Garuda, we get these 5 publications, and we look for the relevant topic that is that are correlate to our own topic. Okay. Okay, so from this point, after we talk about the plagiarism and now talking about literature review, is there any questions from the students here? Do you have questions? Okay, so based on the schedule, okay, based on the schedule that we have in the first meeting, next week we're going to move on to the scientific writing procedures. Okay, how can we write introduction? How can we write the basic theory, or how can we write a certain sentences, etc., and so on. So what I would like you to have in next week's meeting is that I will ask you whether you already have a specific topic that you want to present in scientific communication class or not. So if you don't have any, can I make you suggestion, etc., and so on, so that our lecture, okay, is not going to be one direction like this following 2 weeks. Okay, so starting next week, we're going to be more interactive, and then it's just like when you have that 1 minute self introduction. Remember in the first week, On the fourth week, I'm just going to ask you. You don't need to make any videos. Okay, you don't need to make any presentation at the moment. I'm just going to ask you whether you already have a certain topic that you want to discuss, that you want to talk about in the class. Okay, I'm just so that if you don't have any at the moment, I can make you some kind of suggestion on how you prepare it, on how you look for it, etc. and so on. Okay, is there any question from students?
No, sir.
Okay, so let us meet
Excuse
again.
me, sir.
Yes, yes, yes.
My name is Rifki. It's actually not related to this material, but I am currently sitting into the class yet. So I want to join the EduNext website, but it says that I have to enter the token.
Oh yeah,
and I don't have the token, so
yes, I will send. Okay, I will send you the token at a certain time, so that you can access EduNext later on. And after the period is ending, you will not able to enter EduNext if you are exceeding the time. So I'm going to send you the token that you should enter quickly as possible. So don't worry about it. Okay.
Okay, one more thing, sir. It's about the attendance list. I can enter the attendance list in the 6th. So how can I?
Usually, okay. So if you are planning to, so next week we're going to have that PRS, right? The changes of your study schedule, right? Okay. So after you're done with your PRS, usually the 6th management will change the attendance list. Okay, so so your attendance list before PRS will be considered as 100%. Okay, so don't worry about it. The 80% attendance that I talked in the beginning of our class, usually it is counted after PRS. Okay. In TPB is different. Okay, when we are having elementary physics, elementary chemistry, etc., and so on, since they are not able to do PRS, okay, for the first year student, then the attendance is counted from the first meeting of the semester. But for normal students, that is taking a certain class in second year, third year, and fourth year, the most common counting of attendances is after PRS. Okay, because sometimes student is changing their plans for their courses, etc., and so on. So the official counting for the attendance will be conducted after PRS.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, see you again on Tuesday. We're going to talk about how to write introduction, how to write basic theory, how to write methods, etc., and so on. That is covered in our scientific paper. Okay, I will stop the recording now.